It's Fernando Ruiz art.
It's retro review day again here on the channel, everybody, and today we are talking about one of my favorites. This is a good one. We're back on the X-Men. We're looking at the original X-Men issues, courtesy of their first volume of the Epic Collection. And today we're talking about one of my favorite issues. Now, when people talk about the key issues of the X-Men, of course, they talk about issue 1, which introduces the team, the Neil Adams issues, the Steranko issues, Giant Size X-Men #1, Death of Phoenix, of course. Nobody ever talks about X-Men #3, and that's what we're taking a look at today, X-Men #3. Now, as you can see from the cover, and incidentally, I paid homage to this cover. I drew a version of it. So I hope you guys, and it's up on my website, FernandoRuizEverybody.com. I hope you guys will check it out. I'll link to it. I'll link to it in the description below. I think I put it up. Anyway, so they fight the Blob. This is the first appearance of the Blob. But that is really that's really just one of many historical moments in this issue. This is really a key moment in X-Men history, because this is really where the X-Men really start to X-Men. You know, they really start doing what their team mandate is, which is to go out and find mutants, secure evil mutants, and to help friendly mutants in need. For the first time, we see the X-Men doing that in this issue. Issues 1 and 2 that we have taken a look at before. The X-Men are basically just superheroes. You know, in issue 1 they fought Magneto. In issue 2 they fought the Vanisher. Both Magneto took over an army base. Vanisher was stealing military secrets. So really, the X-Men were just like, they were government agents. In fact, in issue 2, they were working for the FBI. So they were really just government superheroes. Now we see them really doing the mutant thing, really helping the mutant cause. So that's what's key here. Also, I should mention, as I pointed out when we took a look at issue 2, we see that figure of the Angel is now being incorporated into the X-Men logo on the cover. So that was from the splash page in X-Men #2. Kind of cementing the Angel as the team mascot, which I mentioned before too. Okay, so we have this cover, the X-Men fighting the Blob. We go into a nice splash page. As usual, the X-Men working out in the danger room. These scenes were always great, and I talked about this before. They were always a great way to introduce the team to new readers. You know, you got to see the team, each member doing their thing, and the readers got to learn who each member was and what they could do. Interestingly enough, and by the way, the credits here, Stan Lee writer, we got illustrated by Jack Kirby with inks by Paul Reinman. Interesting thing on the cover, somebody forgot Cyclops' visor. But the colorist still tried to color it in, sort of. But that is Cyclops, and no visor for him that day. Okay. Now, another interesting thing about Cyclops, and this issue, we really start to see the X-Men's classic personalities emerge. We start seeing Cyclops more as the brooding member of the X-Men that he's famous as being. We start to see that there's sparks between Cyclops and Jean Grey. This is the first time they really start to suggest any sort of romance between the two characters. In issues 1 and 2, Jean Grey was just the team's pretty girl, and all of them flirted with her. But this is the first time we see that Cyclops is really serious about her, and she's also serious about him. Iceman is still playing the comedy relief. He's the younger jokester of the team. This is also, and I haven't mentioned it in the last couple of issues because it's been fairly obvious, but this is also the snow-covered Iceman as he would appear in these early issues. He's not the more polished ice-covered Iceman. He's just covered with slushy snow, which is kind of cool in a kind of retro sort of way. I've always liked this look. Yeah, I certainly prefer him in his more classic look, but this was always kind of neat. And he will assume his classic form, but not until issue 7. Okay, so the X-Men are working out. Now, in this issue, interestingly enough, there's still no Cerebro. Okay, there's no mutant detecting device. So essentially, Professor X is just a human Cerebro. Okay, he just detects mutants. So in this issue, he detects a new mutant in the area, and his mind goes out. He's able to track him down to a circus, and he sends the team out to approach this new mutant, who of course turns out to be the Blob. Spoiler alert. Now the interesting thing about this is, for the first time, we see the X-Men, doing their X-Men mandate, which is to seek out new mutants. And it goes horribly wrong. They do this so clumsily. It really just goes disastrously. Okay, now we have to talk about this panel. Okay, in this panel, we see, again, I mentioned how Jean, we're starting to see that Jean is attracted to Scott, and that's first brought up in this issue. We also have this panel where Professor X, he's thinking to himself, and he talks about, as though I could help worrying about the one I love, but I can never tell her. I have no right, now while I'm leader of the X-Men and confined to this wheelchair. So Professor X is thinking about his infatuation, the love that he feels for his own student, Jean Grey. Now, I don't know where anybody was going with this. Luckily, this would never be referred to again throughout the next 20, 30 years of X-Men history. Other than as that odd panel where the professor was kind of dreaming of Jean Grey way back in issue 3. Most fans, and thankfully most writers, have just forgotten that as what it is. Kind of a bad idea that shouldn't have been brought up, and was best left forgotten. I think because modern writers have to pick every single scab, I do believe this has been addressed in the last 10, 15 years or so, but I couldn't tell you about it. So if anybody knows more about that, I guess you could enlighten us. I'm sure it was horrible, but I guess you could enlighten us. I will say, okay, so some people may, if you're seeing this for the first time, you may be thinking, oh, this is pretty creepy about the professor. Another theory that has been put out there is that the professor is actually in his early 20s. Now, myself as a reader, and I think most people are with me on this, I think we've all regarded the professor as being in his 40s, maybe his late 30s. But I will say, this issue came out in 1963. Issue 1 came out in 1963. And in issue 1, the professor explains how he is a mutant because his parents were scientists on the original atomic bomb project and were exposed to radiation. And that's how he got the mutation that gave him his powers. Now, if that's the case, and some history majors out there may help us on this. If that's the case, if the Xaviers had worked on the original atomic bomb project, well, that means that the professor was born in the early 40s. So this being 1963, he's got to be about, maybe around 22 years old, if that. So, Jean being 18, presumably she's 18. So the professor being 22, Jean's 18. It's still creepy because he is her teacher and the leader of the X-Men. Unfortunately, this also being 1963, the professor's handicap was more of a concern in those days. And I guess the professor felt bad about it too. But regardless, I think the wisest move was to have just left this panel unaddressed, and that never mentioned ever again. Okay, so the X-Men, they go to the circus where they meet the Blob. Now, I've always loved the Blob. There he is, the Blob, for the first time. Fred J. Dukes, the Blob. Something else also I should mention. This is also the first time that we learn that Cyclops' power is not within his control. Now, that's something I've been looking for, because I don't think it was mentioned that Cyclops, and I'm not even sure they specify it in this issue, that he needs his glasses to contain his optic blast. But it is suggested that one of the reasons why he won't make a move on Jean is that he's very self-conscious about his inability to control his power, and he feels he can't get close to anyone because his power is a danger to them. Okay, so the Blob is just this carnival freak. He's just the fat guy at the circus, and the X-Men, they learn that he's there. Interestingly, another interesting note here that I should point out. There's this panel where Cyclops thinks to himself, no wonder Professor X wants to get the Blob before the evil mutants can contact him. Now, it's interesting. What's interesting about this is, what evil mutants is he talking about? Now, of course, we as X-Men fans in 2020, we know the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants is out there somewhere, and in fact, they'll first appear in the very next issue. But the X-Men have not met them yet. Okay, this is only issue 3. The X-Men, as far as evil mutants go, they know Magneto's out there. They fought the Vanisher. That's it. They haven't met the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants yet, at least not officially. So that line makes me wonder, makes me suspect if these stories were written and published out of sequence. I don't know. I couldn't say for sure. I don't know. But that's an odd line. Okay. So Cyclops, he approaches the Blob. He makes his pitch. Jean Grey, they meet Jean Grey, and the Angel, and the Blob is just a big slob. He puts the moves on Jean right away. Cyclops has to teach him a lesson. So they learn that the Blob is not such a nice guy, but they bring him home anyway. They bring him to the X-Mansion anyway. And again, he's shown to be difficult. And it becomes pretty clear that things go south between the X-Men and the Blob, and he isn't going to really be a team player. So he leaves, and now the X-Men are kind of worried that this jerk is out there knowing all their secrets. So Professor X says, yeah, we got to bring this guy back and shut him up. But now the Blob's got friends. He's got his buddies at the circus. So he gets a whole army of circus freaks, performers, and animals. And I'll tell you, I guess the circus was certainly much more of a thing back in the early '60s. I mean, today circuses have just about died. But man, they were always used as bad guys, as hideouts for bad guys. It's interesting how the circus is often a set and a source for crime in these early Marvel stories. Also, for the first time, we get a glimpse that Hank McCoy, the Beast, is actually smart. Up till now, in issue 1 and 2, he was kind of just sort of written as the teenage thing. He was sort of in that mold of the big strong guy is also the not so smart guy, the guy who's rough around the edges. But we now see he's actually very smart and a reader. And this may be the first time we actually see Hank McCoy wearing glasses. So the Blob shows up with his army of circus freaks, and the X-Men then take him down. The X-Men fight this evil circus essentially on their front lawn, and they fight with everything: elephants, gorillas, everything. The professor, he's no slouch. Of course, he builds this big giant ray, and he cuts loose on. We still see the X-Men are still fighting the circus acts. And finally, again, it comes down to the Blob cornering the professor, and of course, the professor, he's able to. He's a telepath. He's able to neutralize the Blob. And this ray gun of his is able to increase the professor's telepathic powers, so he can pretty much just take out the whole circus. Anybody that hasn't been taken out by the other X-Men, the professor just shuts them down. So once again, much like in issue 2, we see that the professor shows up at the end and pretty much turns off the threat, pretty much just deactivates the threat. And not only that, but in order to preserve the secrecy of the X-Mansion, the professor just brain erases everybody's memory. He just mind wipes everybody, and that's it. That's where the story ends. So it's a real fun story. As you can see, once again, you've got that great Silver Age pacing of a complete story in the one issue. So many critical things happen in this, and we start seeing that the X-Men are becoming a distinct team. They have a distinct purpose. They have a distinct motivation. And they aren't just out, foiling bank robbers. They're out actually doing something specific that only they can do. They're mutants, and they're the best suited to help their own kind. So really, this title at this point in its history isn't getting enough credit for being as distinct as it really is. At this point, it was probably just being seen as a lesser Fantastic Four, but really it was a much better than that. The Blob, of course, great villain, real nasty guy, no redeeming qualities. The Blob, of course, is a mainstay ex-villain, and he comes back. Of course, he ends up joining many iterations of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, So he's always good. He's a great strongman grunt type of a villain. And we start seeing the X-Men really emerging as separate personalities, distinct personalities, each one with a role on their team, on this team. So I got to give this one, I'm not going to say it's a perfect comic. I'll give this one a 4, a big 4. Maybe I might get it up to a 4.5 because it's a fun book. The art is starting to get a little more polished. Some of the roughness of issues 1 and 2 isn't as prevalent here. And we're starting to see some more richly detailed backgrounds. I don't know if maybe, Kirby's finding his ground here, or maybe Paul Reinman is, but the artwork is looking slicker, more consistent. So yeah, I'll go as far as a 4.5 because, as I said, this is one of my favorite issues. 4.5, and that's out of 5. 4.5 out of 5. So this is one of my favorite issues. This is really what an X-Men movie should be. Just take this story. Just take this story and make it a movie. All right, so that's it. Next issue is another fun one and also a historic issue, and that is the first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in X-Men number 4, the return of Magneto, and a lot of key moments in this issue too. So we'll get to it very soon. Stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, please click like. If you have any thoughts on any of the things that I mentioned, let us know. Say so in the comments below. If you've got any theories to add to my own, any corrections, please. I'm just going off of what I know, and who am I? So if you've got any additional info to provide, please throw it in there. Okay? So that's it. Don't forget, click like, subscribe, keep reading, keep drawing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.